Bolt with Wreck of the Broker. Let me see if I'm recording. Okay. Wreck of the Broker, 17 years later. Can we get at least 4 likes on this video? Ooh. Oh, man, can we pull that off? I have no idea. That'll really help me out, though. And then let me know you guys are really watching this channel. You're watching my videos. And I appreciate you for that. Let's see if we can get up there in those subs, too. Can we get that? Can that be done? I believe it can. So without further ado, here we go! With the slow laptop. Come on. Thank you. Stranger Things. And I don't even watch the show. I think it's the Stranger Things music. It sounds like it.
Woodbridge, New Jersey, the kind of town where not much really happens, while holding tons of history behind it.
Like having an
The
Applebee's.
oldest original township in New Jersey, being granted a royal charter on June 1st, 1669, by King Charles II of England. But one evening,
Looking like the
town's
dude from
name
Princess
was
Bride.
etched into history forever, having the deadliest train wreck in the history of New Jersey occur here. This would be known as the Wreck of the Broker.
Roku! Hello?
Around 5
Okay,
p.m.
he's back.
on Tuesday, February 6, 1951, Pennsylvania Railroad Express train number 733, the Broker Special, left the exchange.
Man, he does not sound excited about doing this documentary. He's always so excited, I think.
It carried over 1,000 people in 11 Pennsylvania Railroad Class P70 heavyweight Pullman coaches, led by Pennsylvania Railroad K4 steam locomotive number 2445, a 462 Pacific that was an extremely famous class of engines on the Pennsy. Not to mention there were over 425 of them built by the Pennsylvania Railroad's own Juniata shops in Altoona and the Baldwin Locomotive Works. The engineer that day was 52-year-old Joseph Fitzsimmons, an old hand with 33 years' experience, who hasn't had an accident in his career so far. The reason for the large number of passengers was because of a workers' strike occurring on the Jersey Central Railroad, causing commuter operations to grind to a halt. 26 miles away was a temporary trestle that diverted from the original route parallel to Fulton Street due to construction workers working on the New Jersey Turnpike being built below, so workers could
You guys getting any of this? Because I'm
on the
not.
original tracks. The Pennsylvania Railroad issued a speed restriction in the area, reducing speeds from 60 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. 6 trains had passed over the brand new trestle previously without incident so far. Engineer Fitzsimmons began to slow his train as he got near the trestle, as he had already known about the speed restriction. However, the rails were still wet and slick due to a previous rain, and the train's weight from being overloaded meant it was approaching the trestle at over 50 miles an hour, twice as fast than it should have been. Fitzsimmons slammed the brakes into emergency stop, but it was already too late to prevent a catastrophe.
Oh! I really wasn't paying attention. I think he was saying I was off the trail. Someone's gonna go down the mountain, the hill, the incline, slide down that grassy hill into, I assume, traffic.
Pennsylvania train, a commuter train headed for Bayhead Junction.
Ooh, this is 1951, all right.
Have been derailed. 6 of them are lying on their sides on this.
We interrupt this program to bring you
embankment.
History Channel,
Street here.
available on Disney Plus. Not a sponsor.
The observation was that the trestle erected just today and used for the first time today on the Fulton Avenue side of the regular Pennsylvania line had collapsed and splintered, sending the cars of this train down into the embankment and some into the street. The cars themselves were buckled and twisted about as though they were bits of wood and not made of heavy steel as they are.
The weight of the train and excessive speed split the rails on the temporary curve, causing the K4 and 8 cars to derail and crash down the embankment. The K4 skidded onto its side 20 feet from the remains of the bridge, followed by the first two coaches tumbling behind. The third and fourth telescoped into one another, and the fifth and sixth dangled from the remains of the
How do
bridge.
you use
One
telescope
coach
as a
went
verb
into
like
U
that?
shape from the collision, and
Just
another
you
was
just like,
crushed on its side. The wreck occurred.
You
in
could have
a
just said
heavily
it
populated
merged into
area,
one. It did the
so
fusion dance.
help was very
Fusion?
quickly
Or did it have
arrived.
power rings on
The
standby?
Woodbridge Fire and Police Departments were the first official rescue agencies to arrive at the scene. They found it extremely difficult to climb up the slick, muddy embankment to get to the coaches. And
Oh, well,
most
you
of
gotta
the
do with mud. It's gotta
constables
be
were injured from the train
extremely difficult.
Ladders were laid down on the embankment, and rescuers used the rungs like stairs. The Woodbridge Fire
I
Department
see
used their ladder
numbers.
truck for nearly the same purpose, except they were able to extend the ladder over the embankment and directly onto the coaches. Ambulances, first aid squads, and medical personnel came from at least 20 neighboring communities and cities.
20
Perth
neighboring
Amboy General
communities and
Hospital,
cities?
nearest urban
Oh my
hospital,
goodness!
alerted that there would be a large influx of passengers. Perth Amboy went to
A
full
large
disaster
influx
mode
of
to receive nearly
passengers?
all the
Oh
people
my
whose
goodness!
injuries were serious enough for immediate and intensive medical care.
Intensive
First aid
medical
squads
care?
assisted those injured
Oh
who
my
were able to find
goodness!
treatment at the site. The number of injured and dead passengers was so great that a local grocery supplier had its trucks pressed into service as not only additional ambulances, but also as hearses to carry the bodies later on.
Wow. That's crazy.
Within 30 minutes,
I mean, yeah,
an
that's
enormous
1951, but
crowd
that's
had arrived and
crazy.
surrounded the crash site. Some volunteered to help, but the majority had come out of morbid curiosity to watch the bloody drama unfold as victims in the coaches pled for their lives.
Y'all just standing
The
around
vast
there, just
number of
looking around and not
onlookers
helping, and
pushing in
y'all.
on each other rapidly became a
Dumb.
nightmare within itself. Ambulances experienced great difficulty getting in or out of
We
the
helping,
site.
but y'all making worse
Rescue
traffic
workers
than
had to struggle
vehicles.
to get through the crowds, and vital rescue equipment
See?
was being
Making worse
smashed under the massive
traffic
feet of
than
curious
vehicles.
bystanders.
Ridiculous.
Seeing how the behavior of the crowd was
That's
delaying the rescue
stupid.
operation,
Use your
and possibly
common
costing
sense.
the lives of victims in dire need of help, Governor Alfred Driscoll called in the New Jersey National Guard for crowd control purposes. The guardsmen stood side by side,
Y'all
arms
standing
linked,
there,
forming a human chain, after which the rescue
and these people trying to pass by,
could continue
trying to
as
bring
normal. The
these
whole
poor people that
area
lost their
was
lives
lit with
to
kerosene
hospitals,
torches,
and y'all
countless
standing there
flashlights could be
looking
seen
like
bouncing
y'all's
around
dumb as
as
somebody
rescuers
trying to put
searched
Gorilla
for
Glue in their
anyone
hair.
still clinging
It is
on to life.
stupid.
When a survivor was found, a call went out for assistance, and the rescuers would work
When
in
you could be
groups
doing
to
something
stop,
right.
cut, or pry away any obstructions that might be pinning the victim. Then they would be loaded onto a stretcher and carried down the ladder
Ugh.
toward the street. Some victims were able to walk away from the incident, whether they received medical treatment or not, and have been released, or had been uninjured. Many people living near the crash site opened their homes up to the stunned and shocked individuals to aid them. They were offered food, warm blankets, and most importantly for some, the use of telephones to phone families telling them what had happened. A total of 85 people were killed, including the fireman of 2445, who was crushed when the K4 slammed onto its side from the impact, and around 500 were injured. Most of the deaths occurred in the telescoping third and fourth coaches. Because of the large death toll, a place had to be found to store the bodies until identifications could be made. There was no place large enough that could accommodate the huge number of bodies being pulled from the wreckage, so it was decided that the garage of the Woodbridge Fire Department would serve as a temporary morgue. But the idea of laying bodies on the dirty floor of a garage was not welcome. The problem was solved when a local butcher donated large rolls of waxed brown paper. Each body would be brought into the garage with a sheet of the brown paper unrolled, and the blood-spattered workers gently placed the body onto the paper. Then another sheet of paper was cut and laid over the body. Witnesses described how the feet of the dead were sprawled limp, uncovered by the paper shrouds. Some of the bodies were so badly mutilated that it took hours to identify them, and then only by an article of clothing or personal belongings. As word of the morgue's location spread, terrified family and friends of anyone who was supposed to be on the train that evening lined up outside, praying that their loved ones would not be lying on the floor, many of them realizing the grim reality if this was the case. One of the last victims to be freed was a man that had his body partially crushed and trapped under one of the coach's wheels. The rescue and recovery effort continued non-stop until the last body had been removed from the wreckage that night. The National Guardsmen also stayed to keep looters and souvenir hunters from climbing onto the wreck and either getting themselves hurt or stealing valuable clues for investigators.
Because you know that somebody's going to go out there and do it.
Investigators quickly arrived at the
Much
scene.
like a grave robber,
and the
except you're not
FBI,
going to the
Interstate
cemetery.
Commerce
You're not
Commission,
waiting to go to the
and even the
cemetery.
Pennsylvania Railroad themselves opened their own investigation. The FBI led the investigation to a possible sabotage, but found this was not another City of San Francisco wreck, finding no evidence of sabotage. The Pennsy pinned the blame on the engineer who survived the wreck, since the train was traveling at around 50 miles an hour when approaching the trestle, which was way beyond the restriction of 25 miles an hour. After all, the conductor did remind him of the restricted speed, but as the train got closer, it was not slowing down for the bridge. Alarmed, the conductor tried to reach the emergency brake cord, but due to the overcrowded coaches, he couldn't get to it in time. Even more baffling, reports suggest that K4 2445 didn't even have a speedometer in the cab at the time. The engineer stated that he was indeed traveling at 25 miles an hour. However, if that was the case, he wouldn't have been flying off the curve and tumbling down the embankment. Who was correct? Well, as it would turn out, the Pennsylvania Railroad came under heavy fire. According to Interstate Commerce Commission reports, the Pennsy failed to install proper warning devices such as flashing lights and signs to warn of the speed restrictions. Middlesex County Court then went to accuse the railroad of using the engineer as a scapegoat for their negligence and filed charges for 85 counts of manslaughter, but they were later dropped since the trial would have bankrupted the county. In the end, the ICC labeled the probable cause as excessive speed on a curve of a temporary track. They recommended that the Pennsylvania Railroad install an automatic train control system and that it first install such a system on the New York division, where it would automatically enforce a speed restriction of not exceeding 20 miles per hour while proceeding through a block occupied by a preceding or occupying train. That it will enforce a safe speed under temporary conditions similar to those that existed at Woodbridge when the accident occurred. Furthermore, they recommended that the Pennsylvania Railroad provide adequate warning signs to indicate speed restrictions in such areas unless they are protected by automatic train control. Fitzsimmons continued to work with the Pennsy for 2 more years, but never ran a train again. K4 2445 was amazingly repaired and returned to service, but unfortunately was retired in 1953 and scrapped not long after.
Yeah, they made it through 2 years.
However, the K4 class is still well represented by 2 survivors.
Represented?
50, who's currently
Did he say
well represented by 2 survivors.
Yeah, he said represented. It's represented.
At the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania
Not
in Stratford,
represented.
PA,
Ed.
in 1361.
Ugh.
Is still undergoing restoration to operational condition in Altoona's Memorial Museum. 1 year after the accident, passengers went to the rear of a train, dropping 85 flowers at the crash site, 1 for each death. 70 years have gone by since the incident, but numerous incidents of overspeed on a curve would still occur later, such as the 2015 Amtrak 188 incident in Philadelphia, Cascades derailment in Washington in 2017, and so on. Thankfully, correct procedures have been taken ever since, so disasters like this hopefully never occur again.
Yeah. I'm annoyed by the fact that people were there. Didn't bother to help, just want to stand there. Still true to this day. You know, people act like that in real life. Ridiculous. Okay. Thank you guys for watching this reaction. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe for more on my channel. Recommend me to some more videos you would like for me to react to. Ring that bell for notifications on upcoming videos. And until next time, I said love, and I'll see you guys soon.